On a bright afternoon within the softly lit confines of a room illuminated solely by a single lamp, a young girl and boy lie naked on a bed. Whoa there! Let's rewind a bit from that steamy scene. Meet Natsuo Fuji, a high school boy who is in love with his teacher, Hina Tachibana. To get over his one-sided love, he attends a social gathering called a mixer with his high school buddies. There he meets a blunt and straightforward girl named Ru. Uninterested in the event, Ru proposes they sneak out of the mixer together. Natsuo reluctantly agrees and follows Ru back to her home. As they enter the house, Ru tells the boy that no one else is home and leads him to her bedroom. She then asks Natsuo to have sexual intercourse with her even though she is not romantically interested in him. Remembering his unrequited love for his teacher Hina, Natsuo agrees and ends up doing the deed with the short-haired girl in hopes of getting over his feelings. Afterwards, Ru tells Natsuo that the next time they meet they will be strangers. A few days later, Natsuo finds Hina crying on the school rooftop. He tries to comfort her and voices out that he cares for the long-haired girl. Hina dismisses him and states that grown-ups have grown-up things they have to deal with. Upset, Natsuo tells her to stop treating him like a kid. Later, Natsuo comes home and his widower father informs him that he is going to remarry. Subsequent to the sudden news, his father also says that their new family members will be arriving. The doorbell is heard as his father quickly yanks him to the front door. The door is opened and Natsuo comes face to face with both Ru Tachibana and Hina Tachibana, quickly realizing that the two girls are going to be his new stepsisters. Eventually, the new family sat together at dinner to introduce themselves. Natsuo formally meets his soon-to-be stepmother and asks her what she likes about his father. She then tells him of how this father had made her want to trust again after getting cheated on by his ex-husband. As they ate dinner, Hina received a beer from Natsuo. It was surprising for him to witness his crush developing a dependence on alcohol, causing him to blush as he watched her enjoy with a smile. Natsuo then excused himself to the bathroom to relieve himself, where Ru was waiting for him. She inquired if he had anticipated this situation, but he denied it, and Ru still couldn't believe that Natsuo was the person Mr. Fuji had been referring to. Suddenly, Natsuo also asked Ru about their parents' remarriage and how it might affect their daily lives. Ru expressed her willingness to accept it in order to bring happiness to their mother, who hadn't experienced much of it in recent years. She also requested that they forget about their initial encounter and what they had done in order to avoid further complications. After their conversation, Ru returned to the living room, leaving Natsuo somewhat doubtful about what decision to make after everything that had happened. After their dinner, the Tachibana family left, leaving Natsuo and his father alone once more. Natsuo noticed his father's joy at their visit, evident from the wide smile on his face and how he willingly took on the task of washing the dishes himself. Natsuo paused for a moment, realizing that his father had remarried, even though he should have been informed beforehand. Seeing his father's smile reach his ears, Natsuo's recognition grew stronger. In the end, Natsuo also decides to support his father and the marriage. Then, unexpectedly, his father announced that he had already purchased a second-hand house and they would be moving there next week. Natsuo is still reeling from his encounter with Ru, a girl who he had a one-night stand with, and Hina, his teacher who he is in love with. He decides to confide in his best friend Fumiya. Fumiya advises him to forget about both of them and move on, as it will only get more complicated since they are now family. However, Natsuo can't seem to shake his feelings for the two girls. Soon after, the family moves into a new house together. While moving in, Natsuo finds it hard to adjust when Hina tries to establish a closer bond with him as an older sister. He then makes his way to the second floor and eventually spotted Ru in the hallway. Noticing his displeased expression whenever he sees her, Ru angrily reiterated her request for him to forget about their past and retreated to her room. Despite hearing her words, he couldn't simply erase those memories since she was his first. They all shared a pleasant dinner together, and after Hina finished bathing, Ru's mother instructed her to take her turn. This triggered Natsuo's reminiscence of their sexual encounter and Hina's naked body. Hina emerged from the bathroom with only a towel draped around her chest, but she let out a scream upon realizing her mistake and heeded her mother's advice. Natsuo remained in the living room engrossed in his reading. Hina reappeared wearing a sleeveless shirt and hotpants, revealing even more skin, which made Natsuo feel somewhat intimidated. Later that particular night, Hina becomes intoxicated and dozes off on the sofa. Witnessing Hina in a vulnerable and carefree state, Natsuo attempts to suppress his emotions by leaning in for a single kiss. However, just as he approaches, Ru intervenes and interrupts the moment. After witnessing Natsuo's attempted kiss, Ru forcefully escorts Hina to her bedroom. Rather than reprimanding Natsuo, she holds Hina accountable, attributing the situation to her lack of caution. The next day, Natsuo arrives at school late, sporting ridiculous and disheveled bed hair. To his surprise, he discovers that Ru is transferred to his school, prompting him to approach her for a conversation. Natsuo pulls Ru out of the school building and into the open area, questioning why she had transferred. He also made a point not to disclose their true step-sibling relationship to everyone as they were still grappling with the awkwardness of their previous one-night stand. But this decision ended up backfiring when Rue bluntly expressed that there was no need for them to talk at all, promptly leaving the area and leaving Natsuo alone. Later at lunch, Natsuo notices Rue isolated from the rest of her class. He goes and talks to her, telling her they can become friends instead of strangers. Rue agrees and fixes his disheveled hair for him as a gesture of goodwill. Rue expressed her admiration for her sister's outgoing nature, confessing her own lack thereof. In an attempt to copy her sister's speech style, she reluctantly sought Natsuo's assistance in improving her communication with classmates. Their impromptu speeches took an unexpected turn, transforming into a spontaneous stand-up comedy routine. Surprisingly, the audience in Rue's class erupted with laughter upon hearing their performance, and many of them approached her, extending offers of friendship. Overwhelmed by her own shyness, she once again succumbed to her timid nature. After school, Natsuo made his way home, clearly preoccupied with his thoughts. Upon entering the bathroom, he found it already occupied, with Rue immersed in a hot bath and engrossed in a book sealed in plastic. Natsuo was only partially clothed, draped in a small towel that concealed his lower body. Both of them felt a sense of unease in that situation, causing Natsuo to blush intensely as he hastily retreated from the room. However, Rue called out to him, urging him to come inside. She reminded him that he had already seen everything during their one-night stand and expressed her gratitude for his help in befriending her classmates. She also regretted her previous doubts about Natsuo's intentions, particularly after witnessing his near kiss with Hina. Ultimately, Natsuo acquiesced to her requests and entered the bathroom. Once inside the shower room, Rue asks if Natsuo is already aware of Hina's boyfriend. Perplexed, Natsuo asks for clarification, but Rue disregards his question and exits the room instead. The following day, their parents made the decision to formally register their marriage at the city administration office. They also wanted to celebrate their remarriage with a dinner outing, leaving their children in charge of the house. Despite her lack of experience, Hina eagerly volunteered to cook for the family, considering herself the oldest sibling. However, their mother had doubts about Hina's culinary abilities. The unexpected turn of events filled Natsuo with anticipation as he looked forward to experiencing Hina's cooking. To his surprise, he discovered that Rue was the true culinary talent, while Hina had contributed minimally by assisting with tasks like chopping tomatoes. Nonetheless, Natsuo was more impressed by Rue's kitchen skills, causing her to blush at his praise, and he also made sure to acknowledge Hina's contribution. Subsequently, Rue retreated to her room to read, leaving Natsuo and Hina alone in the kitchen. As they engaged in conversation and playful banter, Hina lost her balance and Natsuo swiftly caught her before she fell. A sudden pause ensued, their eyes locking for a moment, only to be interrupted by a phone call on Hina's device from Shu Hajuar, her boyfriend. After answering the call, Hina exits the house to meet Shu at the front. After some time, she returns from a heated argument and hastily shuts the door. Natsuo attempts to persuade a reluctant Hina to share information about his boyfriend, but their conversation is cut short by the ringing of a doorbell. Assuming it is Shu, they choose not to open the door. Rue arrives and inquires about the situation before opening the door. Surprisingly, it is their parents who have returned from their evening excursion. The tense atmosphere swiftly changed, with Hina concealing her emotions and quietly retreating to her room. The next day, Natsuo pays a visit to the cafe where his close friend Fumiya works at. After Fumiya finishes his shift, he lends an ear to Natsuo's troubles and offers him advice. Natsuo confides in Fumiya, expressing his distress over Hina being in a relationship with someone else while also feeling conflicted about his own feelings. To Natsuo's surprise, Fumiya reveals that he has recently experienced jealousy as well due to his fondness for girls who frequent the cafe and are already in relationships. Fumiya jokingly suggests that they should all break up with their current partners and date him instead. Natsuo perceives Fumiya's suggestion as a potential solution to his predicament with Hina, simply urging her to end her current relationship. Later, after Fumiya finished his shift, he accompanied Natsuo home. As they walked down the street, Fumiya pointed towards a woman whom he had mentioned earlier at the restaurant. It turned out to be Hina, who appeared to be on her way home after getting out of the front seat of a black car. There was a man with neck-length blonde hair sitting in the driver's seat, engaging in conversation with Hina before closing the car's mirror. Natsuo's intuition signaled something unsettling, and all the fragmented details he had gathered started to form a troubling image. Upon returning home, Natsuo sat alone in his dimly lit room on his bed. Natsuo contemplated deeply, trying to connect the dots. Eventually, everything began to make sense to him. Natsuo makes the decision to confront Hina and pays a visit to her bedroom. Hina welcomes him inside and inquires about his reason for being there. Natsuo, being direct, asks her directly if she is involved in an affair. Taken aback by the sudden accusation, Hina attempts to deny it, but Natsuo recounts witnessing her conversation with a man who had intentions of leaving his wife. Eventually, Hina confesses and explains that it is a part of the complexities that adults face, urging Natsuo not to involve himself in such matters as a child. He implores Hina to end her relationship with her boyfriend, but instead finds himself kissing her. In response, Hina pushes him away and delivers a stinging slap to his face. Recognizing his mistake, Natsuo offers a sincere apology for his actions. However, Hina reciprocates the kiss and pushes him onto her bed. Upon witnessing the shock in his eyes, she reminds him that he is still a child and should not interfere in her life. Natsuo goes back to his room crying. The following morning, Natsuo made the decision to escape from his own house and seek refuge in Fumiya's apartment. He left behind a simple note for his family, expressing his intention to stay with his best friend. Unable to bring himself to reveal the truth to his parents, he opted to take a step back and carefully consider the best course of action. Unfortunately, this decision carried the risk of affecting his parents' plans for remarriage, as they both realized the consequences of their sudden actions. As for Rue and Hina, their reactions differed, with Hina seeming to have an inkling about Natsuo's plan. Throughout the day, Natsuo remained lying in Fumiya's room, assuming the same position as when he got there. Attending school was out of the question, as he would inevitably encounter her there. Later on, Fumiya returned home earlier than usual, having completed his shift at the cafe. He was reluctant to discuss anything with Natsuo, filled with worry and regret over the situation involving her. Natsuo took it upon himself to confide in Fumiya about the events of the previous evening. Fumiya playfully teases Natsuo, making the joke about taking Hina away from him, and they engage in a lighthearted banter. Shortly afterward, Fumiya uplifts Natsuo's spirits by urging him not to spend his time sulking on the floor, but rather to channel his energy into writing his novels. The weight of his problem had clouded his judgment, causing him to overlook the fact that only his friend had provided him with the advice to concentrate on his journey toward becoming a novelist. The next day, Natsuo commenced writing. In the afternoon, he took a break and glanced out the window. The clouds appeared ominous, rain pouring relentlessly. His attention was captivated by a uniformed girl holding an umbrella, seemingly searching for someone. It was Rue. Engrossed in her task, she curiously peered beneath the park seating. In an instant, her gaze shifted upward, and she locked eyes with Natsuo through a lit window. It was likely that she was searching for him, having learned that Natsuo had stayed at his friend's apartment. Rui requested permission to enter the apartment, but Natsuo couldn't provide an answer since he wasn't the owner. Consequently, Rui decided to find an internet cafe to stay in, but he intervened and asked her to wait for him at the entrance instead. She wasted no time in questioning his reasons for leaving and connecting this situation to her sister. At that moment, Fumiya's mother appeared on the scene and inquired about the relationship between the two teenagers. She soon discovered that Rue was the younger sister, which resulted in an admirable pout from her. Afterward, Mrs. Fumiya granted permission for Rue to stay inside as well. It was then that Natsuo realized how impulsive his decision had been when he noticed Rue's completely soaked shoes and socks. He had never expected her to go to such lengths to take care of him. Mrs. Fumiya kindly offered them hot tea, and the two of them proceeded to enter his best friend's room. Just in time, Fumiya arrived and was shocked to see a girl inside his room. As the sky transitioned from sunset to nighttime, the rain finally subsided and the three of them remained in Fumiya's room. Rue had changed into her fancy pajamas, fully prepared for her spontaneous boycott plan. Setting aside other matters, Fumiya impulsively started talking about Rue and Natsuo's first encounter. However, Rue didn't mind it once she learned that Fumiya attended a different school. Finally, they turned their attention to the pressing issue as Rue revealed that she had previously confronted Hina about the situation, urging her to end her relationship with Shu, but Hina had dismissed her concerns. Left with no other choice, Rue decides to flee until Hina ends her association with her boyfriend. In a similar fashion to Natsuo, she had also made an attempt to bring her sister back, but unfortunately experienced the same outcome. Her only desire was to see her sister return to her former self. With a shared objective in mind, the trio collaborate to devise a plan aimed at breaking up Hina's relationship. That night, as their plans had been finalized, the two of them made their way back home. Their parents, sitting silently, awaited their return and then switched on the lights in the living room. Both Rue and Natsuo felt a sense of relief upon seeing their parents there. An untouched divorce paper lay on the tabletop, ready to be filled out, but Rue and Natsuo made their true intentions clear. While his father wished for him to confide in them instead of leaving the house given the current circumstances, it was deemed better to keep everything a secret. Suddenly, Hina hurried over to the area, expressing her relief at seeing them, particularly Natsuo. She collapsed to the floor, apologizing for her previous actions. The following day, Natsuo and Hina encountered each other on the staircase. Hina greeted him good morning, but he remained expressionless and simply passed by, returning her greeting. He then sat beside Rue at the dining table, and both of them felt determined to carry out their plan in the afternoon. Natsuo and Rue stalked Hina to look for the alleged boyfriend in question. However, after following her for a few days, they still have no luck with finding her boyfriend. It all began with their time spent at the stand-up bar during their school hours, leading up to the live comedy event the following day. Later, on a bustling street, they encountered a student seeking advice, but their endeavor to attract Hina's lover turned out to be a total failure. So instead, they go with the last resort of stealing Hina's phone. They plan for Rue to impersonate Hina and break up via call, but due to her issue with social interaction, she is too nervous to speak to the stranger. Having failed at their last resort, the two discuss their next move at the cafe where Fumio works. Just then, Hina and her boyfriend Shu enter. Finally seeing Shu, Natsuo gets up in a fit of rage and tells him to break up with Hina. Kobayashi Akamari, Fumiya's co-worker and older friend, reprimands them, stating violence is not allowed in the establishment. He requested that both individuals take a seat in the farthest corner to facilitate a more focused and undisturbed conversation, ensuring other customers wouldn't be inconvenienced. Additionally, he kindly offered Natsuo a plate of Neapolitan noodles to help soothe his nerves. Everyone relaxes and gathers around the table to engage in a much more peaceful setting. Shu takes the initiative to introduce himself as a married 32-year-old man without children. He reveals that he and Hina have been in a relationship for 2 years. Rue interrupts him straightforwardly and asks who made the first move in their relationship, suggesting that the person responsible should be held accountable. Shu acknowledges that he is the one who should be held accountable and apologizes for not meeting the two in a more formal way. Natsuo is shocked by the man's disrespectful behavior towards them and criticizes Shu for causing harm to both his wife and Hina due to his self-centeredness. However, Shu declares that his feelings for Hina are genuine and he plans to divorce his wife, although he requests some time for the divorce process to take place. The conversation persisted until Rue reached her breaking point. In a fit of anger, she threw her glass of water at Shu's face and hastily fled the restaurant. Natsuo was taken aback by her actions, but he hurried to her side instead. Rue sprinted as fast as she could through unfamiliar streets until they finally came to a halt. If Natsuo hadn't intervened, Rue admitted she was prepared to take drastic measures, unleashing all her pent-up resentment and fury. She wept uncontrollably while Natsuo could only offer his comforting presence as solace. In the meantime, feeling remorse for causing pain to her sister and Natsuo, Hina suggests to Shu that they end their affair. Shu embraces her and inquires about her genuine emotions and her true desires, seeking to understand what she truly wants to do. The following day, Natsuo woke up and made a beeline for the bathroom to freshen up his sleepy face. He was startled by the sight of Rue, her disheveled bed hair sprinkled with freckles, but still neater than Natsuo's. Her eyes appeared dry and swollen, evidence of her intense crying from the previous night. Afterward, the two of them proceeded to the dining room and took their respective seats. Their astonishment grew when they noticed a large flowered doodle prominently drawn on the calendar, marking May 12th, Mother's Day. Hina joined the conversation as she entered the dining room. She invited her younger sister to accompany her to buy presents. Rue promptly declined, abruptly setting down her bowl and retreating to her room upstairs. The incident had clearly strained their sisterly bond, as evidenced by Rue's avoidance and Hina's reaction to her refusal. Hina also asked Natsuo to keep her company, but he too turned down the request. Later that day, Natsuo visits his mother's grave, reminiscing about the time she was on her hospital bed until the time of her funeral. He turns to the side and unexpectedly sees Hina and Rue following him, bearing gifts for Natsuo's mother. Natsuo was taken aback by their presence together, especially since Rue had declined Hina's offer earlier that morning. Then he received the news that Hina had finally made the decision to end her relationship with Shu. Realizing that Natsuo and Rue were among the most important people in her life, she expressed her unwillingness to cause any harm to her family members. In response, Rue's face lit up with a joyous expression, a sight that Natsuo had never seen before. Subsequently, Rue and Hina placed their gifts at his mother's gravesite, introduced themselves, and asked for her guidance and protection over their lives. Subsequently, Rue meets Momo Kashiwabara, a bright and bubbly girl, by the shoe locker at their school. She first notices the array of meticulously sewn stuffed dolls on Momo's bag. Momo notices this and decides to give Rue a blue rabbit doll. Within the classroom, Rue's classmates become aware of the doll and casually discard it in a trash can. Rue is puzzled by their actions and questions their reasons. The three girls exchange rumors about Momo, mentioning her alleged habit of dating multiple boys, and warn Rue against developing a close relationship with her. Upon hearing this, Rue rises up to retrieve the doll from the trash, firmly asserting that it is her decision whether or not she wants to develop a relationship with Momo. Later that day, Momo encounters Rue once more and gives her a Rue doll that she crafted during class. They engage in conversation, during which Rue gains insight into Momo's personal life, including the fact that she has dated more than 30 individuals, which aligns with the circulating rumors. Nonetheless, Rue befriends her. Afterward, the two girls spend some time together and engage in a shopping trip to a bookstore, where they encounter Natsuo. Momo becomes interested in Natsuo and asks him about the book he was reading. Natsuo talks about the literature and offers to give her a paperback if she is interested. Momo blushes and accepts the offer. Walking back home, Natsuo saves Momo from getting hit by a bicyclist. Later on, Momo questions Rue if she can fall in love with Natsuo. Rue says she doesn't care, so Momo requests for her support. The next day, Momo spends the entire day at school playfully showing interest in Natsuo and eventually invites him on a date. However, upon learning that Rue is unwell, he chooses to go back home and tend to her instead. After waking up, Rue asks why he didn't go on the planned date with Momo. Natsuo explains that he couldn't bring himself to go when he knew Rue was sick and not feeling well. While Rue is resting on her bed, she tells Natsuo that Momo has feelings for him and inquires if he likes the bubbly girl too, revealing that she feels uneasy seeing the two of them together. The following day at lunchtime, Momo still sticks close to Natsuo and kisses him on the cheek to cheer him up. Momo eventually invites him over to her house where they make out in her room. They are interrupted when Natsuo's phone rings, a message from a family member asking what he wants to eat. Momo feels a hint of jealousy. Due to her parents' highly dysfunctional relationship and their frequent work commitments, Momo finds herself alone for the majority of the day, always eating alone with little to no company. Consequently, due to her limited social connections and troubled relationships with her peers, she unfortunately resorted to self-harm at one point. Upon discovering Momo's scars on her wrist and her many difficulties, he chooses to halt their current activities and opts to prepare yaki udon for her instead. He assures her that she can reach out to him whenever she feels lonely and that they can share meals together. Momo becomes emotional and tears up, expressing how none of the guys she previously dated treated her with such care. Curious about their relationship status, she asks if they are dating, but he responds by suggesting that it might be best for both of them to avoid dating individuals they are emotionally dependent on. While engrossed in a novel, Natsuo unexpectedly encounters his teacher, Riju Kiriya, smoking on the school rooftop. Startled by being caught, Kiriya takes notice of the literature book in Natsuo's hands and proceeds to engage him in a conversation about literature. The teacher praises Natsuo for his interest in reading and promptly leaves the rooftop. Later, Rue requests Natsuo to help her find a club. They come across the literature club, where Natsuo takes a book by his favorite author, Yu Hasegawa. Rue warns him about possible theft for taking it without permission, but Natsuo assures her that he will bring it back without anyone noticing. However, when returning the following day, he sees teacher Kiriya and another student named Miyu Ashihara in a compromising position and misunderstands. He attempts to run away, but is caught by teacher Kiriya, who threatens to report him for theft if he doesn't join the club. Thereafter, Kiriya learns that Natsuo and Miyu Ashihara, the club's only other member, both like romance novels and tries to get them to kiss. Although reluctant, Natsuo attempts to kiss her but stops after seeing tears well up in Ashihara's eyes. He apologizes and gives her tissues. Kiriya is pleased to see Natsuo's true character through the whole ordeal. The next day, Natsuo comes across Ashihara in the library. The two begin passing notes in hopes of staying quiet, now forming a friendship with similar interest. Before club activities, Momo and Rue approached Natsuo to also join the literature club. Rue feels an unknown emotion budding inside from her after seeing Natsuo getting along so well with Ashihara. During the weekend, Rue visits the cafe and opens up to Kobayashi, seeking guidance regarding her troubles and conflicting emotions. She shares her inner turmoil and seeks advice from him. Kobayashi, drawing from his own experiences during his time in the Yakuza, relates to Rue's feelings and recounts a personal story of finding love. He encourages her to listen to her heart and hopes that by doing so, she will be able to understand and define her emotions. Meanwhile, back at home, Hina approaches Natsuo and expresses her desire to spend time together on Sunday. On Sunday, Hina drives Natsuo to a well-known restaurant where they get mistaken for a couple. Subsequently, their relationship seems to be blossoming, getting to spend some time together alone as they tour the place and enjoy all the tourist attractions. They then arrive at the beach, where they have a deep conversation about the affair. Curiosity piqued Natsuo's interest as he inquired about the reasons behind Hina's involvement with Shu. Hina reveals that Shu was her first love and also her high school teacher. Reflecting on her high school days with him, Hina remembers how Shu had provided her comfort after getting isolated by her friends. She also recounts how they unexpectedly crossed paths again during her 4th year of college, finding Shu now married. Despite knowing it was morally questionable, she seized the opportunity to reconnect with her first love. Seizing a golden opportunity, Natsuo presents Hina with his meticulously crafted novel, finally revealing the deep-seated feelings of love he has harbored for her. To his utter astonishment, Hina reciprocates by inquiring if they could embark on a romantic journey together. Tenderly grasping his hand, she ushers him into the water beside her. As they wade further into the depths, Hina imparts her wisdom about the true essence of relationships, likening them to the act of dying together. She articulates that pursuing their love would inadvertently invite societal consequences akin to committing an irreversible double suicide, as such actions would inevitably lead to the forfeiture of their friends, family, and social standing. As the pair slowly wade back to shore, Hina conveys her conviction that maintaining a platonic, sibling-like relationship would be in the best interest of all parties involved, allowing them to preserve their cherished connections and evade potentially disastrous ramifications. Upon returning home, Hina reads Natsuo's novel and becomes emotional, shedding tears. The next morning, Natsuo discovers the novel placed back in his room, accompanied by a note expressing gratitude. Despite feeling disheartened by the outcome of his confession, he tightly clutches the note in his hand. At that moment, Rue, having realized her true feelings for her stepbrother, pays a visit to his room. Natsuo invites her inside, concerned about her well-being. Rue takes hold of his hand and recalls that they never shared a kiss during their previous one-night stand. This prompts her to request a kiss from Natsuo. Although Natsuo initially feels it is inappropriate due to their familial relationship, Rue persists and convinces him. Eventually, they share a kiss, and Rue suggests the idea of secretly engaging in regular kisses as a means to experience a sense of fulfillment. The next day, to prepare for the final exams, Rue and Natsuo request for Hina to tutor them in their studies. While studying, Hina notices Natsuo is still uncomfortable because of their previous talk. That night, when Natsuo goes to ask Hina something related to his studies, he sees her pleasing herself while she calls for Shu's name. He drops the book he was holding and hides behind the stairs when she looks for what caused the noise. The next morning, Hina greets Natsuo with a good morning. She waves to him as she leaves, which makes him look at her hand, and Natsuo suddenly feels embarrassed. As a few days go by, an atmosphere of awkwardness permeates the relationship between Natsuo and Hina. Simultaneously, Rue finds herself facing a recurring issue of her underwear being stolen by an unknown thief. Within the school premises, Natsuo unexpectedly gets knocked over by a bicycle, an incident caused by a carefree overseas transfer student named Alex. Despite the collision, Natsuo and Alex strike up a conversation and become acquainted due to Alex's lighthearted nature. Later, Natsuo decides to introduce Alex to a cafe where Kobayashi, a friend, informs them about the ongoing problem of an underwear thief. On their way back from the cafe, the two boys happen to spot the thief descending from a pole after apparently stealing another piece of underwear. They quickly spring into action and manage to apprehend the culprit through their effective teamwork. At the police station, Rue arrives, unaware of the reason behind Natsuo and Alex's presence. Alex, upon seeing Rue, becomes instantly captivated by her and asks Natsuo to introduce them. However, when Natsuo attempts to arrange a meeting between them, Rue glares at him and abruptly leaves. To express his remorse, Natsuo prepares a dish of yaki udon for Rue, who forgives him as they share a kiss. At that very moment, Hina sees them kissing. Confused by what she just witnessed, Hina runs back to her room, refusing to talk to Natsuo. Instead, Rue enters Hina's room, aiming to clarify the situation, and confesses her romantic affection for Natsuo. Clearly distressed, Hina expresses her disapproval, emphasizing their familial connection, but Rue counters by stating that their lack of blood relation makes their relationship somewhat acceptable. The next evening, Natsuo, feeling an overwhelming urge to clear the air and resolve the emotional turmoil, nervously approached Hina's closed bedroom door. He gently knocked on the wooden surface, hoping for her to answer him. As her voice edged with vulnerability, Hina inquired if Natsuo also harbored feelings for their stepsister Rue. With an earnest denial, Natsuo proclaimed his love for Hina was unwavering and that his heart belonged solely to her. Upset and overwhelmed by the previous argument with Rue, Hina made a heart-wrenching decision to move out of their family home in order to mend the fractures that had surfaced within their once-united household. After relaying her wishes to move out, the family decides to go on a family outing to a shrine. When everyone is split up, Natsuo holds Hina's hand and leads her somewhere quiet to talk. She initially tries to avoid him, but with the help of his friends, they manage to calm her down. Before leaving the two alone, Kobayashi gives Natsuo advice to listen to Hina first. Now alone, Hina confesses her true feelings of how she was just simply jealous of Rue and how she wouldn't be able to hold back her feelings if she stayed. Natsuo hugs her and tells her that when they're together, he realizes they are in love. At a bookstore, Rue meets Shu in Korea, who turns out to be Shu's upperclassman during college. She greets them rather rudely, still upset about the affair he had with her sister. Shu apologizes for what he did and tells her that he has not contacted Hina ever since the breakup. They go to the cafe and Shu treats her to a meal to apologize for the trouble he caused. He explains that although he is now divorced, it would still feel selfish to reconcile with Hina. Feeling that Shu has changed for the better, Rue confides in the two men about how she feels devastated by Hina's departure and feels guilty for causing her to leave. The two men reassure her, urging her to consider the possibility that it likely isn't her fault and that she should trust her sister's reassurance. Before long, Hina finally moves out of the house, leaving Natsuo a key to her apartment. Later, Natsuo finds Rue staring out the window in Hina's old room and comforts her, telling her that he will always be there for her as an older brother. That same night, Natsuo goes to Hina's apartment using the key she left for him and watches her sleep. When she wakes up, Natsuo tells her that he came there willing to die with her. They share a kiss, but Hina stops him when he tries to go further, saying that they shouldn't rush things. The following day in school, Natsuo and Rue engage in a conversation about the club's writing assignment when Alex joins them, expressing a desire to join the literature club. In a subsequent moment, Hina provides Natsuo with reassurance regarding her emotions, affirming that she reciprocates his feelings, culminating in a heartfelt kiss. As their relationship progresses, Natsuo becomes a frequent visitor to Hina's apartment. Living away from home provided a significant advantage for both Hina and Natsuo, as it offered them ample space to embrace and engage in intimate moments whenever they were together. Hina even began cooking from scratch, solely for the sake of her and Natsuo's relationship. The school festival goes smoothly and most people are content with their individual situations. However, after noticing their teacher Kuria's absence for nearly 3 days, the members of the literature club decide to pay him a visit at his apartment. To their surprise, they discover that their club's supervisor is actually the renowned novelist Yu Hasukawa, one of Natsuo's idols. Kuria informs them about an upcoming award that could serve as a stepping stone for one of their novels to become a professional novelist. Upon returning to school, Ashihara accidentally bumps into Natsuo, causing him to fall down the stairs and break his leg. At class, Ashihara bows down to her knees, apologizing profusely, while crying about what she had done. Natsuo assures her that it really is not a big deal. Back at home, Rue seizes the opportunity and takes on the responsibility of caring for him, going so far as to bathe him. She confesses that she misses Natsuo's presence, believing he has been spending time at Fumiya's house, unaware that he has been secretly visiting Hina instead. Rue visits the cafe to inform Fumiya that Natsuo won't be visiting him anymore. However, Fumiya expresses confusion, revealing that Natsuo hasn't been to his house in a while. Rue confronts Natsuo about this inconsistency when he returns home, but he lies again, claiming he was actually at Momo's place and not Fumiya's. As the story progresses, Natsuo continues to deceive Rue about his whereabouts. Feeling unsettled by his lies, Rue enters his room and discovers his novel. Reading it, she realizes that Natsuo is in love with Hina. Filled with a mixture of emotions, she confronts Natsuo at Hina's apartment and flees upon seeing them together. Worried, Natsuo returns home to find Rue gone. He tracks her down in the rain, finding her soaked. When she sees him, Rue slaps him and breaks down in tears. Once she calms down, Natsuo resolves to be completely honest with her, sharing his true feelings and explaining the reality of his relationship with Hina. After Natsuo tells Rue about his relationship with Hina, Rue asks Natsuo for one last kiss as she accepts the revelation about him and Hina. The two return home wet and shivering from the cold. She maintains a formal relationship with Natsuo and their mother welcomes them at the door. The following day, Rue decides to ignore and dislike them while not at home. At school, Kuria announces that Rue's novel will be receiving an award. Natsuo is disappointed by this but tries to look happier for the club. After class, Ashihara comforts Natsuo about his loss and encourages him to work harder instead of feeling depressed about the results. After the pep talk, Natsuo pays Kuria a visit and asks him to make Natsuo his apprentice. Kuria refuses for the young boy's own good, the teacher advising him that the only way to become an author is by struggling by himself and not comparing his abilities to others. Upon arriving home, Natsuo genuinely praises Rue for her award-winning achievement. Acknowledging his own limitations, Natsuo is determined to exert effort and face challenges in order to become a successful novelist under the mentorship of Kuria, who serves as his club advisor. A few days later, the second-year students go on a beach vacation to Okinawa. Despite the apparent enjoyment of everyone around, Natsuo becomes aware of Rue's somber demeanor. As the second-year students enjoy their time at the beach, Rue approaches Hina. Feeling guilty about her relationship with Natsuo, the elder sister apologizes and suggests ending their romance to mend their sisterly connection. However, Rue objects, asserting that even if they part ways, their emotions will remain unchanged, rendering the breakup futile. Recognizing Hina's emotions, Rue comes to terms with her and makes amends. For their last day in Okinawa, Natsuo buys a souvenir ring for Hina. When he sneaks into her hotel room to give it to her, she tries to break up with him. Natsuo objects and puts the ring on her finger, declaring that age or other relations are not the reason he fell in love with her. Just then, the fireworks go off and Natsuo asks Hina to marry him in the future, calling her by her name for the first time. The two lovers spend the night together and confirm their feelings once again. Returning to the school, Hina is abruptly summoned by the principal and is shown a picture of her kissing Natsuo at the hotel window. The principal confronts Hina about the picture, confirming her relationship with Natsuo. Hina doesn't deny the accusation and states that she will receive any kind of punishment. During the school's closing ceremony, Hina announces that she is going to be transferred to a distant school due to personal reasons. Natsuo and Rue struggle to get in touch with Hina. Natsuo opts to visit Hina's apartment in search of her, only to discover it deserted. He stumbles upon a letter for him, revealing that the school learned of their relationship and she negotiated the transfer in return for the school's discretion. Hina expresses her desire for Natsuo to move forward and realize his aspiration of becoming a novelist. As the days turned into a week, Natsuo found himself sinking deeper and deeper into the heavy mire of depression. Concerned for his well-being, Rue confided in Fumiya about the dire state Natsuo had fallen into. Without hesitation, Fumiya went to visit Natsuo, hoping to provide some support and solace. Upon arriving, however, he did not mince words, instead harshly berating Natsuo for his self-destructive attitude, arguing that such behavior made all Hina's sacrifices amount to nothing. This upfront confrontation served as a wake-up call for Natsuo. In an attempt to rediscover purpose and meaning in life, he turned to his writing once more, writing a brand new novel that would encapsulate the raw emotions he sought to process and overcome. Alongside Rue and their friends, he tirelessly worked on his passion, word by word, page by page, hoping to transform his feelings of anguish into art. Gradually, his emotional state began to mend alongside the progress of his novel, an affirmation that writing was what he needed to heal and move forward. On the first day of the new year, Natsuo finally overcomes his slump and visits the shrine alongside his club friends. Upon discovering that Natsuo completed a draft for his novel, the group presents it to Kiriya. After perusing the manuscript, Kiriya expresses admiration for the progress Natsuo has made. Later, Kiriya invites Natsuo into his home where the boy gets abducted by a man named Soichiro Tsutaya. He gets taken to a ceremony where his latest novel, which was entered by Reiji Kiriya into a contest, has won first prize. Natsuo is shocked and delighted by the outcome and goes upstage to deliver a speech. Upon returning home after a potential job opportunity, he is taken aback when he believes he sees Hina. Overwhelmed with excitement, Natsuo can barely contain his joy as he rushes towards the woman he believes to be Hina, eager to share the thrilling news of his recent achievement. As he embraces her, however, he quickly realizes that it is Rue, who has donned a wig to resemble her sister. Caught off guard by Natsuo's fervent reaction, Rue's eyes fill with tears, and she swiftly retreats to the sanctuary of her room. Concerned for her well-being, Natsuo follows Rue and enters her room, where he finally discloses the news. His novel has triumphed in a prestigious competition. As tears continue to streak Rue's face, she vulnerably confesses that witnessing the depth of Natsuo's love for Hina has ignited a surge of jealousy within her. With newfound courage and determination, Rue boldly confronts Natsuo about his intimate relationship with Hina, her own sister. Surprised by her candidness but unwilling to deny the truth, Natsuo openly acknowledges what he did with Hina. In an unanticipated turn of events, Rue suddenly leans forward and plants a passionate kiss on Natsuo's lips. With a fierce determination in her eyes and heart pounding, she boldly declares that she will no longer suppress her own feelings for him, regardless of the complicated love that tangles them all together. Meanwhile, elsewhere, two schoolgirls engage in a discussion about Hina's newly shortened hair. Hina gazes into the distance with a smile, while Natsuo's second novel, titled, Well, See You, unfolds with a sense of resolution.